methods stand the test of time.
The on-field result of more than a century's hard work and skillful craftsmanship, the men's lacrosse rivalry between Johns Hopkins and Maryland is the greatest in the sport. Since 2015, the clash of the Blue Jays and Terrapins has been Big 10 built, with these two blue blood programs manufacturing 6 conference crowns. Tonight they tangle again, and the stakes are high. The Crab Trophy and a Big 10 regular season title. Some assembly required. Next.
No matter the weather, this will be a fun Saturday night. Maryland ready to run the field at CQ Stadium with Johns Hopkins, a tournament top seed on the line with Lacrosse on Big 10 Network. A very pleasant welcome to you. Along with Mark Dixon, I'm Joe Beninati. The intensity that surrounds a Maryland-Johns Hopkins lacrosse game is exceptional. What does it mean to each of these programs?
Well, this is why you come to Hopkins, why you come to Maryland. It's why we do what we do. Terps are be the best. The Blue Jays, we want more. And to add some more juice to this cocktail, the winner gets the weekend off in the Big 10 quarterfinals. And if Maryland wins, they claim the #1 seed.
It's time for us to introduce you to the netminders for this evening's matchup. Johns Hopkins is running with Tim Marcille, and he has been tip-top this season.
Marcille is a player who has just emerged as the backbone of a very good, much improved Hopkins defense. He's going to have to be huge here tonight.
Meanwhile, Maryland freshman Brian Ruppel, he's warmed to the spotlight in this his 9th start. He seems to be unfazed by the moment.
And he's a freshman. This will be his first Hopkins-Maryland game, but he's a cool customer, and he's proven it time and again. The reigning Big 10 Freshman of the Week. He was sensational a week ago against Rutgers. He'll have his hands full with an incredibly diverse and motion-oriented Johns Hopkins offense.
This is a top 7 matchup in the country. Maryland coming in ranked 4th in the land with an 8-3 mark. Johns Hopkins at 10-4, each of them with 3-1 records in Big 10 conference play. Now, depending upon who you talk to, Mark, it's meeting 100 number 25, 125 for Johns Hopkins, 118 for Maryland. Maryland says 7 of those games were played before they were varsity status.
Yeah, you know, I'm a Johns Hopkins Blue Jay, Joe, so I'm going to go with Ernie LaRasa and his staff over on Charles Street. I'm calling this the 125th meeting all time. No matter how you slice it, this is the best rivalry in college lacrosse. When you talk about the shared national championships, the All-Americans, this is what it boils down to. These two programs here tonight with even more on the line since both have joined the Big 10 Conference.
Maryland head coach John Tillman says to have a great rivalry, you need a great adversary, a great opponent. There is mutual respect as these two teams shake hands and get set to square off. Important matchup, as always, at the face-off exits. Luke Weirman against Matt Naruski. Each of these guys tone setters for their respective squads. The officials tonight. Referees are PJ Colello, Doug Donovan, and Jeffrey Hoffman. Visiting Johns Hopkins in blue, Maryland here on home turf at CQ Stadium in the white. It's the final regular season game of the Big 10 Conference play, and it is the game. The rivalry in college lacrosse is underway.
Easy win for Weirman to start out. Naruski's just increased his pitch count the last couple of weeks. Hopkins goes 3 deep at the face-off dot with Callahan and Dunn, who can spell Naruski. So Hopkins may need to go to that 3-headed monster, which is a page out of Maryland's playbook. It's how they won the 2017 national championship.
Kyle Long gets into the alley. First touch offensively for the Terps. Long, who has points in 28 of 29. The feed to the interior. That's deflected away from Kelly and taken up off the turf by Mazzone. He then gets swarmed looking to clear. Ball's knocked out of the cross of Carson Brown as the hitting intensifies. right off the get-go.
Welcome to Hopkins, Maryland. 125th edition, 125th round.
Scott Smith finds Garrett Degnan, and now 6-on-6 at this end of the field for the Blue Jays. Melendez rolls, fires, Rupel makes the stop. Comes racing out of the cage. He has displayed very good stick skills all season. He spots John Geppert, and Geppert works the other way. To the trailer, Trader, he fires high on Marcille, backed up on the end line by Daniel Kelly, although the officials will award the ball to Johns Hopkins.
Yeah, again, that ball went out of bounds before either player got past goal line extended, and when that happens, it's the goal line, and the goalie is on the goal line. That is the closest point to the end line.
Ball down, they're wrestling for it. Raposo and Kelly there at the midline. The officials will give the ball to Maryland.
Sloppy so far. You're seeing a very aggressive Hopkins defense, and this is a second midfield unit for Maryland that has been incredibly productive over the last 2 weeks. They were the heroes in Columbus in that overtime victory over Ohio State, and they were very efficient a week ago on the road against Rutgers.
Syracuse has the ball. Tallies in 2 straight games. He works into the alley against Brett Martin. Looking to lift the lid on the scoring in this rivalry matchup. Hard work back behind the cage. Ball down, it comes up for the freshman Urksa. Spin it for Spanos. Then Whittier on the outside, shaded there by Nick Kaufman. Urksa feeds back behind the goal. Maltz is hovering there. Daniel Maltz fires and scores!
Little bit of a ricochet shot. Daniel Maltz, he's a shooter, he's not a dodger, so when he sets his feet, you got to batten down the hatches. I'm not sure if it's deflected off of a Hopkins defender. It may have caught a piece of Bowden Zulik, number 44. Watch as the ball changes direction, it knuckles past Marcille. Maltz with the first tally of this contest.
Ohio State's the only team to keep Maltz off the board this season. He gets Maryland on the score sheet, and Weirman gets him the ball right back. Luke Weirman, number 2 all-time face-offs in Maryland's history. But in his career against Johns Hopkins, Weirman is just 43 of 93 prior to today. Well below his mid-60% effectiveness. Kelly fires, Marcille fights that off, knocks the rebound to the corner.
Hopkins struggled against Penn State a couple weeks ago mightily. Naruski came in and didn't necessarily set the world on fire in the second half with face-offs, but he was able to make it a 50-50 situation, get the wings involved, make it more of a scrum. He's going to have to figure out a way to do that, or Hopkins is going to have to figure out a way to do that.
Chorus feeds inside for Kelly. That's knocked away. Zulik watches Marcille come up with the scoop, and back come the Blue Jays in transition.
What a difference a year makes. This was an absolute embarrassment for Johns Hopkins last year. They were down 22-4 at Homewood Field at the end of the third quarter. Maryland emptied their bench. The final count 22-7. Fast forward to 2023, Johns Hopkins, regardless of how they finish the season, this is a team that will make the NCAA tournament. I would bet my money on that. But man, to be in the position they are, they got to feel good about themselves.
Grimes weaving his way in. Plenty of time on the shot clock for the Blue Jays. Maryland out in front thanks to a strike from Daniel Maltz. Deliberate possession here for Johns Hopkins. Bauer swings to the front, finds Grimes. Play it this way for the high-scoring, hard-shooting Degnan. Into the alley, not electing to shoot there. Russell Melendez picked up by Lacey. Melendez peeking over the top against the short stick defensive midfielder. Waits, settles, gets it back and fires off the post. Rebound, follow, score! Brendan Grimes. Right place, right time.
I love the patience of Melendez. If this was 6 weeks ago, Melendez would have shot that ball before he made the one more pass. Instead, he gets it back. He has a better look at the cage. It rings off the iron, and Johnny on the spot, Brendan Grimes, comes right into his stick He whips it past Brian Ruppel.
Weirman comes up with the draw, beating Naruski. Naruski on the season at 49%. Weirman flexing his face-off muscles from the get-go in this 1-1 tie.
Yeah, and Weirman's normally a guy that if he does struggle early, and that's where he has his quote-unquote struggles in games, but then he makes adjustments, he figures the other opponent out, and then he gets on a run. Right now, he's won 3 to himself, clean as a whistle. That's not good news for Blue Jay Nation.
Syracuse sends it back behind the cage for Maltz. That pass is low. It'll get away from Spanos. Goosed over at the midline. Maryland will keep possession. Eric Spanos, the sophomore from Pennsylvania. Syracuse launches that one wide. It'll stay Maryland ball. Braden Urksa, outstanding freshman, 4 multi-goal games this season, brings it in off the end line. Gets topside, then gets de-sticked. Beautiful stick check there.
Scott Smith, a little dig and lift. So you're seeing Scott Smith take Urksa, who is the primary playmaker for this Maryland offense. And on the other end, it's Ajax Zapatello guarding Jacob Angelus, who is the distributor, where I think Hopkins can attack. Number 40, Garrett Degnan, is matched up on number 40 in white, Colin Burlace. When you challenge Burlace one-on-one, you can sometimes have success.
On the move, Blue Jays feet inside. This is sent high by Brooks English. Scott Smith at the other end, the last couple of years has led the Blue Jays in caused turnovers. It's his takeaway that has Johns Hopkins in business now, looking for its first lead in this young lacrosse game. Stutter step move, lost the ball there, did Ryan Evans. And the Terps will look to clear. Maryland on the season is the #1 clearing team in the nation.
Very efficient, very smart. That's a mantra of Maryland lacrosse, John Tillman teams in particular. They will not beat themselves.
Each team with a couple of turnovers, a couple of miscues in the opening 7 minutes. Short stick D midfielder Nick Red sharing the ball with Kyle Long. Long in his career against Hopkins, 6 goals and 8 assists.
We'll see how he does today. Last year, in the last couple years, he ran with Anthony DeMeo.
Chorus on the feed, Urksa moving around up top. Brennan, as Coach Tillman was hoping to see this first midfield group receive a spark today, get some confidence. They care so much about each other as Maltz goes to the split, fires one wide, backed up neatly by Chorus. Keep it hot, Brennan. Marcille with the save, launched out there to cover the rebound. It comes up for the Blue Jays, and the whistle will give Johns Hopkins the ball.
Good save by Marcille, but a better reaction as he dives after that ball. Remember the game growing up? Hungry, hungry hippos. That ball right on his doorstep, he launches himself, and because he's in the crease, his stick makes contact with the Maryland player. It's interference, creates the turnover to the Blue Jays.
Matt Collison, the 19-year-old freshman from north of the border. He hails from the province of Ontario. He's had a very good scoring season. This is a Whistler finding Peters. Peshko.
Hopkins has had a lot of injuries this season, and they've had a lot of lineup shuffles. What that has enabled them to do is develop a scoring depth that runs 9 or 10 deep. Jonathan Peshko, nothing fancy here. You get the offensive midfielder Jack Brennan, number 41 in white, stuck on D. He doesn't communicate well with the shorty Nick Red. Peshko gets angle, he gets a step, and he gets the back of the net.
Jonathan Peshko, another Canadian in the Blue Jay lineup, with tallies now in 5 of 7 games. Points in 7 straight. Weirman still operating well off the face-off. A 4-0 advantage for the Terps in the first 8 minutes.
And 4 clean, where Weirman has won those things dominantly. We'll see if Hopkins reaches down and taps on Tyler Dunn or Logan Callahan to come in and take the next face-off.
Dunn won 8 of 9 last week. when Hopkins scored a season-high 17 goals to down Ohio State. Urksa will switch it. Spanos has room. That's blocked by Zulik. Follow-up for Urksa. Denied there by Marcil at the doorstep. Back-to-back tallies for Grimes and Peshko, giving the Blue Jays the lead. Maltz has the lone strike for Maryland.
Defense has to be galvanized by Marcil. He looks sharp early on, but you got to be careful. Marcial's kind of like a sandwich in a game. He starts hot, middle he can struggle, and he gets hot at the end as well. He's got to be consistent today.
Whittier feeds it. Kelly fires, he scores! A buzz bomb from Daniel Kelly.
Maltz is the righty shooter. Kelly is the lefty. And off of the missed shot, Maryland just comes up with the ground ball. There's nothing fancy here. You've got to keep a stick in the gloves of number 45 in white, Daniel Kelly. He gets time, an opportunity to size up the 6x6, and he whistles it past Marcil.
Deadlocked at 2 apiece. Kelly's 23rd. He's got markers in all 12 games this season for Maryland. The officials awarding the ball to the Blue Jays as we get towards the latter stages of this opening quarter. Joe Beninati, Mark Dixon, so glad you've tuned in with us. Lacrosse on Big 10 Network.
Tyler Dunn took that face-off for Hopkins, drew a push, and then it's a delay of game against Maryland. So not only does Hopkins win their first face-off, they will enjoy their first extra man opportunity as Maryland is charged with delay of game.
Blue Jays on the season at 36%, but even better than that, in their last 10 ball games, their extra man offense is clicking around 45%. The guys in blue gather around looking for the lead again as we near the 9-minute mark of the opening quarter. Collison is straight away. They change the formation. Degnan feeds. Grimes will keep it hot. Angeles is the quarterback, 23 in blue, one of the best assist men in the nation. Collison thought about it. Settles in, fakes again. Angeles plants a foot in the ground against Gibbons. Collison fires, and Rupel, the freshman, eats that up.
Good save by Rupel, and I like the little wrinkle that the man-down defense. Garrett Gibbons playing Angeles behind the cage. Angeles is the feeder. He's the guy that looks for open men. He disrupted his rhythm a little bit right there. Rupel with the big stop.
Mark Gibbons normally doesn't get an offensive touch. He's more a clearing midfielder for John Tillman's troops, but to see him there on the man-down defense, a new wrinkle turned in for this big rivalry match.
He's very athletic. I've been impressed with him, watching him in this Big 10 season. Gets up and down the field well, and he's athletic enough to cover the shifty Angeles.
Maryland has won double-digit games in each of the last 18 seasons. That's the longest active streak in Division I lacrosse. Long fires and picks the corner. Kyle Long.
This is the Terrapin version of early offense. Normally this year, the Terps take a minute to get into their offensive set. But Kyle Long recognizes that his defender's playing off of him a little bit, splits right to left, and then he finds the back of the cage. Terps celebrate.
Lacrosse on the Big 10 Network. It's brought to you by State Farm. When you want the real deal, like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. They are battling for the rivalry trophy. It's Johns Hopkins in Maryland and the State of Success, brought to you by State Farm. These two programs, Mark, know a thing or two about winning.
They sure do. Hopkins with 9 NCAA titles, Maryland with 4. 2 since 2017, including last year's historic Terrapin edition that went wire to wire undefeated. And other than Penn State, The only two programs to win Big Ten tournament championships are the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays and the Maryland Terrapins, and they are in prime position to contend for that honor once again in 2023.
John Tillman told us earlier in the week the 1973 national champions, right, celebrating their golden anniversary. Their 50th anniversary would be in attendance today.
Led by the great Frank Urso, four-time first-team All-American.
I didn't realize he was then a freshman at that time in 73.
Just one of the best players, not only in Maryland history, but in the history of college lacrosse, an absolute stud. Those guys were thrilled. The 73 and 75 national championship teams, when Maryland won in 2017, I think the 73 and 75 guys didn't go home for like a week. They were basking in the championship glow.
Party on. Weirman getting the jump on Tyler Dunn there. Dunn had won his first face-off after Weirman was doing fine work against Naruski. Maryland gets another possession in a 3-2 advantage for the Terps. Spanos will walk it in. Whittier joining him off the sideline, picked up quickly by Cody Ince. One of four short stick defensive midfielders we expect to see from head coach Peter Milliman of the Blue Jays. Whittier dancing on the outside. Siracusa favors his left hand. Gets into the alley off the roll dodge with it. Kick it weak side for Whittier. Swims over Ince. Here comes the help from Zulik. Jump shot. Marcille is locked in. Both netminders, Marcille and Rupel, looking strong in this first 15 minutes.
They've both played extremely well. And you've got Marcille, who won the starting job in 2021, helped Hopkins make a run to the Big Ten tournament championship game against Maryland. Didn't play last year. Didn't win the job. Was the backup in 2022, but volunteer assistant Brian Kelly assumed goalie coaching responsibilities, and Tim Marcille has responded in a terrific way.
Blue Jays 6-on-6. Spin the rock for Melendez. Hard shooting attacker Melendez with 27 points in his last 8 games. Off the roll dodge, it's English. Picked up on the outside. That pass is picked. Intercepting and making the takeaway, the defender Colin Burlace, wearing his dad's number 40.
Yeah, Hopkins runs 7 middies, Joe, and that is the second straight turnover from the second midfield unit, which has been aces in 2023 for Hopkins. In order to win this game, both of these teams are going to need their first and second lines, no matter what the combinations are. You want them to be productive, but at the very least, you cannot turn the ball over.
Brennan on the move in this historical rivalry between the Terps and the Blue Jays. Maryland has won each of the last 5 meetings, and those have all been played in the last couple seasons. Chorus working in. Give and go. Brennan fires, and he just missed the top corner. Backed up by Daniel Maltz.
I love that move, the windshield wiper, almost a face dodge, if you will, and then the body control of Brennan just missed the top corner.
Maltz speeds in, floats it over the top. Brennan inverted, the midfielder below the goal line. Urksa, this time with Mazzone on him. Kelly, who struck early, finds Maltz. Front swing there. Chorus, not able to pull the trigger. Working in against Martin. It's Chorus, double teamed there by Hunter Jaronski. Long opens up. Late in the shot clock here, it's a violation against Maryland.
Great defense the last 20 seconds for Hopkins. They caught a break. Jack Chorus was wide open on the front swing. Ball hits him right in the stick, but I don't think he could get it in his head of his stick comfortably enough to get a shot off. Had he done that, that was a good chance that could have been a goal. Hopkins catches a break.
Maryland has the 3-2 lead. They have a large margin in terms of shots taken to this point in the opening 13 minutes of play. The 3-2 tally provided by Kyle Long, Maryland's leading assist man. Russell Melendez takes a peek from the angle, getting underneath. Collison denied there at the doorstep. Rupel was waiting. It's a crease violation against Johns Hopkins.
I like the go by Collison, but that's an all or nothing proposition. You're either going to stick it and end up in the crease, and it's going to be a good goal if you stay out of the goal mouth, or are you going to have what happened there?
This drive from Trader is deflected. Dante Trader, short stick defensive midfielder, not afraid to go offensive at all. These two teams going great guns of late. Maryland has won 5 of its last 6. Johns Hopkins 6 of its last 7. If Maryland wins, they are the #1 seed in the Big Ten tournament, as Whittier sends it high.
Yeah, the 1, 2, 3 as of right now is unsettled. 4, 5, 6, we've got that figured out. 4 seed Michigan, 5 seed Ohio State, 6 seed Rutgers. So next weekend, the one matchup that we are guaranteed is a replay of last night. Ohio State at the Wolverines.
Penn State took care of its business an evening ago, earning a share at least of the regular season Big Ten conference title.
Yeah, Maryland wins. We will see Hopkins host Rutgers next weekend.
Whittier's pass, that's a tough catch. Too low for Maltz. Johns Hopkins can have the last possession with 18 seconds to go. In this opening quarter from College Park, Maryland, temperatures in the 70s, overcast skies, plenty of rain pounding down on CQ Stadium about an hour before face-off. Snapshot here, sent wide of the goal by Ryan Evans. 6 seconds remaining in the quarter. Angeles will take it in off the end. Angeles marked by Zappatello. That pass picked off by Rupel. He'll launch it the length of the field. And we are done with 1 in the rivalry game. Blue Jays and Terrapins. It's the Terps on top. We'll get you back for more Lacrosse on Big Ten Network.
Maryland 3.
Mark, we take the fans around the Big Ten.
Penn State knocking off Rutgers last night. That means they clinch a share of the regular season Big Ten title. Penn State awaits the result of this game. If Maryland wins, Penn State is the #2 seed. If Hopkins wins, Penn State wins the #1 seed, and they will share, and they get the overall title, Big Ten regular season title. Michigan, of course, knocking off Ohio State. They secure the #4 seed. We will have Michigan, Ohio State, round 2 from Ann Arbor next Saturday night.
With regard to those tiebreakers, Penn State beat Johns Hopkins, lost to Maryland. As the Blue Jays get the draw, Scott Smith angles back. Smith, who scored this season against Rutgers. Face-off win for Tyler Dunn. Dunn seems to have the better mojo going so far against Luke Weirman.
Yeah, trained at Inner Circle in the Baltimore area, doing a great job. And again, that's the kind of luxury of having the 3-headed monster, or at least in this case thus far, a dual threat at the face-off dot. In case one struggles, you throw the other one out there. Different style, different technique, different results.
That's Mark Dixon. I'm Joe Beninati. If you're just tuning in with us, it's Maryland and Johns Hopkins. Blue Jays goals from Grimes and Peshko. Maryland defense comes to the aid of its netminder there, then lost the ball on the clear. Terps with tallies from Maltz, Kelly, and Long for the 1-goal advantage.
I tell you, the first, 5 minutes of this game, Joe, the amount of collisions, hits, maybe more than these teams have experienced in game action over the last month. It's settled down, but right there, Burles with a great slide, then Melendez with a great ride.
Collison against Trader. Grimes working with Degnan a long way from the cage. Zappatello leans in. Degnan finds room. Sent it high there. Garrett Degnan, known for his lethal left-handed shot. Angeles brings it in against Zappatello. Quickness on display from both. Outstanding defensive footwork from Zappatello, the All-American. The pass to the interior gets away from Grimes. It was too low. This will roll to the sideline, be kept alive by Degnan.
Smart play by Degnan. Stops the ball from going out of bounds. His feet were out of bounds. Reestablishes position and picks it up.
There's that moving pick against the Blue Jays. It gives the ball to Maryland. John Tillman was saying that he sees a lot of Bobby Benson's coordination offensively in what the Blue Jays are doing this season. Benson, who used to be the longtime offensive coordinator of the Blue Jays and was the OC here in College Park.
Yeah, and he also coached John Crawley, who was a player at Johns Hopkins. very much a basketball offense. That's what Bobby Benson incorporates. That's what John Crawley incorporates. It's all motion-based, motion-oriented, read and react. And Jake Bernhardt, the new offensive coordinator for the Maryland Terrapins, has built on what Bobby Benson has put in place, as well as who built on J.L. Reppert's work. You know, it's just kind of you try to keep some continuity without blowing up the lab.
Brooks English gives the ball for Jacob Angelus. Angelus speeding in against Burlace. Positionless offense for the Blue Jays. In the words of this man here, Russell Melendez. Melendez sweeping in against Zapatello, who keeps him at stick's length. Evans against Red, and Rupel straightens up to make another stop.
One thing Rupel will not do is guess, and he hugs his pipe, goes tall, follows the stick of Ryan Evans. If you're Evans, you want to take another step upfield to increase your angle. Thought that shot was a little hasty, but Rupel has shown no signs of jitters or nerves in his first Hopkins-Maryland game.
Mark, all season long, that's been the case, right? It hasn't been too big for him. The stage has never been too bright.
You know, I think young lacrosse players these days, with the club circuit and the amount of championship games and having college coaches watch them, and then the high-level high school, when you have YouTube and all these games being streamed and watched and covered, these kids are used to really big games by the time they get to college.
Sloppiness from Maryland. Degnan fires, that's high. The Terps, as we are near the 4-minute mark of the second quarter, have yet to take a shot on Marseille in this frame, as we hear the timeout call with 11:14 to go in quarter number 2. We'll get you back to CQ Stadium in just a few moments. This rivalry match continues. The Terps, on the strength of a goal from Kyle Long, leading by 1. Mark, as always, it's Maryland and it's Johns Hopkins, and it gets rough and tough.
I tell you, buckle your helmets. You don't want anything flying off. Good physical ground ball play. Copter sighting on CQ Stadium. Great defense, physical, both these teams. Be the best versus we want more. And just the extra juice that's been added to this rivalry now as conference opponents. Doesn't get much better.
Johns Hopkins attempting to end an 11-minute drought at this end of the field now. Offensively, going with Dylan Bauer. He'll exchange with Brendan Grimes. Grimes against Burlace. Move it for a Degnan rocket. Punched away by Rupel, adding to his save counter. It'll stay Blue Jay ball. Coach Milliman said you knew the energy level for a Hopkins-Maryland game would be through the roof, but they tried to keep control of it all week. Keep the guys grounded. Grimes turns.
Well, and they remembered what happened last year, and Peter Milliman told us this week, it's not about revenge. It's about an opportunity to go out, play a really good team, get another quality win, and get the opportunity to get a bye, get the number 2 seed in the Big 10 tournament.
Against a Maryland team that he called fundamentally sound, extremely well organized and coached. Their defense was buttoned up there, forced a turnover as Chorus goes to the cage. The trail check comes from Carson Brown. Ball down, man ball drilled, and it's Mazzone, who is a ground ball magnet, coming up with this one for the Blue Jays. Mazzone had a dozen in a single game against Delaware earlier this season.
I get the question often, what's different about this Johns Hopkins team? I think top line, the addition of John Crawley as offensive coordinator, and the addition of volunteer assistant Brian Kelly. They just bring alumni experience and a high level of energy to the program. The other two big things, the addition of Russell Melendez, the transfer from Marquette on the offensive end, and the transfer from Georgetown on the defensive end, Alex Mazzone. Physically gifted and such a mature leadership presence.
Mazzone, who said lacrosse at Johns Hopkins and Homewood so unique, he called it the Mecca of lacrosse, an honor for him to pull that number 6 jersey overhead. Melendez, a long way from the cage, along with McDermott. Still looking for the first goal of the second quarter. An inside roll from Evans was met quickly there by Nick Red. Shot clock at 18. Melendez picked up a long way from the cage. Maryland's number 1 is on him. That's Brett Makar, the All-American defender. Evans on the sprint. Move it for Angeles, and he sings that one wide of the goal.
It's good offense by Hopkins. Only 4 seconds, however, remain on the shot clock. Will they elect to attack or just chunk? Oh, it looks like the offensive middies are already retreating to the box. They will surrender and just ride Maryland.
They will give the ball up. It'll go back to Maryland here with 8 minutes and 50 seconds to go in this opening half. And still the Terps yet to take a shot on cage against Marseille in this quarter. Gibbons will drag the ball off the sideline and wait for offensive-minded reinforcements. Eric Spanos, namely, with Ryan Siracusa. Siracusa with goals in 4 of his 7 games this season. Whittier on the move. Topside Spanos. Whittier settles in. Urksa moves it for Spanos. The split dodge, roll dodge combination not fooling Brett Martins, who's had a terrific season at short stick defense for the Blue Jays. Powering in. Help comes from Smith. And they take the ball away from Spanos, and back come the Blue Jays.
That's Brett Martin, number 12 in blue, at his best. When he allowed Kyle Long to get time and space, he finished. When Brett Martin gets in your face, he is as nasty as it comes in Division I.
Juronsky going to the goal. Feed for Melendez. Behind the back's pretty. Angeles scores!
It starts with Brett Martin playing great one-on-one defense against Spanos. With the help of a pole, he creates the loose ball. Then a little razzle-dazzle. You thought Melendez was going to take the shot stepping upfield. Instead, the little nifty behind the back to Angeles. The one more with flair ends up in the stick of number 23, and he slips it past Brian Ruppel.
To the face-off X. Ball scraped out of there by Dunn. Mazzone off the wing. Didn't get it firmly in his cross, but possession belongs to the Blue Jays. Short stick defensive midfielder Jackson Raposo getting Johns Hopkins a chance to take the lead now.
And Luke Weirman is going to work on this. He's going to try to figure it out. Tyler Dunn has come in, and he has reversed the fortunes of the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays at the face-off dot.
Winning a couple in succession. Angeles hovering on the outside. Degnan fires! He scores! Garrett, Degnan, lightning in a bottle. Blue Jays on top.
Degnan, the local product. Just around the corner in Hyattsville, DeMatha High School. Just catches Burles a little flat-footed. Drags across the face of the goal. Angeles sees him, and Degnan on the run, sidearm, beats Brian Ruppel. Terrific shot by number 40 in blue.
The grad student has goals in 27 straight. 33 on the campaign right there among the Big 10 conference leaders all season long.
Degnan came to Hopkins, Joe, as a midfielder and really was an unheralded recruit by Dave Petramala, a kid who missed recruiting summers with salmonella poisoning and some other maladies, and he has just been outstanding in his career for Johns Hopkins.
Urksa ran himself into trouble. Blue Jays take the ball back, and now they have a chance to make it 3 unanswered in this second quarter, which exists for another 6:25. The Terps, pretty well buttoned up throughout the season from a turnover standpoint, have coughed it up 5 times in this frame alone. Grimes ready to go. And the throwback for Melendez, Makar right there at his hip. Spinning in, it's Dylan Bauer against Trader. Sharp angle. That was too fine. Good hustle there. To the sideline by Nick Red, earning possession for Maryland.
Yeah, I didn't like that shot at all by Dylan Bauer. You really didn't get a ton of separation from Dante Trader. It was a poor angle. And Nick Red, he's a terrific athlete, terrific lacrosse player, runs to the sideline and gets, really, that's a turnover by the Johns Hopkins Blue Jays.
As we enjoy this matchup between the Blue Jays and Terps, we remind you where these two teams stand among the top 11 in the land.
When we take a look at the USILA top 11, Notre Dame, the winner earlier today against North Carolina. Virginia at home takes care of Syracuse. Maryland and Hopkins, obviously. Penn State, the winner last night against Rutgers. So the Big 10, very well represented. I think at this stage of the season, we still have a little ways to go. Maryland, Penn State, Hopkins, they are going to the NCAA tournament. The question is, are they on the seed line or not? I think Penn State is a seeded team, and Johns Hopkins with the win tonight, I think guarantees themselves a seed. How about Denver at 10th, beat Providence, former Blue Jay and Maryland assistant Bobby Benson, and Bill Tierney's final season. Matt Brown named head coach earlier this week to succeed the legend Bill Tierney.
Inside those huddles, John Tillman, the head coach for Maryland, he told us earlier in the week that his squad, sitting there with a mark of 8-3, had been an inconsistent group throughout this campaign. At times they've looked brilliant. He said he expected it, though, considering what they lost off of that historical team a season ago.
I mean, there's going to be some type of drop-off. You know, even though Maryland reloads for the most part, when you lose Logan Wisnauskas and Keegan Kahn and John Donville and Anthony DeMeo, Matt Rahill, and by the way, their goaltender who won the national championship last year is on IR with a knee injury. So you knew there were going to be hiccups. But for this team to still be at 8-3 with the schedule they play, and the younger players that have come on, and by younger I can even mean like a Daniel Kelly, who's getting his first real taste of game action as a junior, this team is doing just fine. Maryland is in position to earn a seed and host a home game in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Make no mistake about that.
A Maryland team that's won 21 of its last 23 here. Their home win streak ended at 20 when they lost in overtime earlier this season in early March to then number 2 Notre Dame. It's a 4-3 Johns Hopkins advantage, low-scoring lacrosse game, 5.5 to play in our opening half. Brennan and Chorus getting things together. Chorus sprinting into the alley against Martin. Inverted back behind the cage. Here comes the help from Scott Smith. Irks off the sneak. He scores! Braden Irksa.
This is an interesting strategy and tactic by the Maryland Terrapins. Jack Chorus does most of his damage off ball, or when he receives the one more. Here, he creates. And I think Hopkins kind of created a little bit of offense as the slide went a little bit early. Irksa behind the cage. No one covers number 10. A breakdown in communication by the Johns Hopkins defense. Irksa takes advantage and scores the layup.
Braden Irksa on the board in 6 of his last 7 games. Weirman to the face-off dot against Dunn, and Dunn comes out of there cleanly with it. Dunn attacked by Weirman, ball down. The whistles blare out. The loose ball push will give Johns Hopkins the ball.
Yeah, Maryland fans don't like that. That could have been a withholding as Dunn was laying on the ball. That's the other thing about Luke Weirman, and Tyler Dunn for that matter. These are both really, really good athletes and really good lacrosse players. They are not your typical Fogos, meaning face-off, get-off. Weirman will hunt you down if you beat him on a face-off. He is strong enough and talented enough. He creates the loose ball right there, but the push bails the Blue Jays out.
Russell Melendez has the ball. Blue Jays have won 3 of 4 face-offs in the second quarter. What is it, and we see it maybe the next time, what is it about Dunn's move that's giving Weirman some issues?
That's, I don't want Fogo Nation coming after me, Joe, so I'm not going to use all those goofy terms of plunger and twister and all that. I just know that he's whistle ready, he's quick, and he's just beating him to the clamp.
Degnan acknowledging the feed there from Melendez. Melendez says it is such a treat for him to work with Degnan and Angeles. He doesn't even have to think about it. It's just a free-flowing type mentality. Angeles is the quarterback, the feeder. Degnan is the shooter. Evans back behind the cage, marked by Lacey. With 4 minutes to go in the opening half. Evans fires. That hit cross traffic in front of Rupel. Good job off the ground there by Zappatello, who's the reigning Big 10 Defender of the Week.
Yeah, that's a group we really don't talk about enough in-game because they do such a good job. Makar, Zappatello, two bellwethers of this Maryland defense. And earlier we were talking about this Maryland team refocusing for 2023. It's really good to return two first-team caliber All-Americans in Makar and Zappatello.
Urksa just tied it up a few moments ago. Now the Terps look to take a late second quarter lead. Syracuse on the ball. Hopkins out shooting Maryland 10-2 in this second quarter. On the move, it's Whittier. Off the roll. Skip a man, Syracuse. Closed out there quickly by Ince. Syracuse fires. That's easy pickings for Marcille.
Yeah, not a great shot from Syracuse. It didn't have a lot of juice on it. He didn't have a lot of leverage to get Mustard behind it.
Marcille with his fourth stop on the night. Melendez just cooling his heels with 2:40 left to play in the second quarter. Peshko, who struck in the first. It was his goal that gave the Blue Jays a 2-1 advantage. Collison with the Dylan Bauer. Angeles will find Melendez. St. Joe's the only team he didn't score against this season. On the way down, Angeles makes the feed there. Angeles gets it back from Bauer, works it inside. Maryland defense collapsing there on Peshko. Out of the pack, it is Colin Burlace who comes up with the ground ball.
Yeah, a little bit of a force by Angeles. Peshko really didn't have a lot of room to operate. Turnover, Blue Jays. I thought they could have been a little bit more judicious. Angeles normally doesn't put his guys in that position.
Makar on the clear there. Makar said if he could build the perfect defender, he would use the footwork of Zappatello, the strength of Giles Harris, and the overall ability of Jesse Bernhardt.
That's a pretty perfect beast you just described. I'm a big fan of number 1 in white. Terrific player, but a terrific guy. We had such a great time talking to him, and who can forget him embracing his father in the stands last year after winning the national championship and giving his dad his jersey.
Terrapin's passing combination gets away from Kelly. Jurotsky on the end line. They fish for it there. Brennan 2. It comes up Maryland, but on the end line there to turn it back over. Kelly had his foot on the end line. The officials are going to talk about it as Johns Hopkins has the ball.
Maryland is arguing that they called a timeout. And it looks like they're going to win the argument. They're going to get it.
John Tillman getting that timeout called from the officials today, P.J. Colello, Doug Donovan, and Jeffrey Hoffman. You spoke about Makar and his dad. Makar's father, Keith, an electrical contractor, Makar Electric
We asked him if he didn't work down in this neck of the woods. He said, not just yet.
Brett said it was the cherry on top of what was a brilliant season to be able to do that with and give that gift to his father in the aftermath of a Maryland National Championship. Blue Jays at 10-4, ranked 7th in the land, squaring off with these Terps. A ranking of 4 nationally, a mark of 8-3 in a game that's deadlocked at 4 apiece.
There you see Hopkins. Their defensive coordinator is Jamison Kesterer. He came over from UMBC to join Peter Milliman's staff 3 years ago, and he's done a nice job with this defense. Jamison, a face-off man during his career at Johns Hopkins, and this is a mean Hopkins defense. Scott Smith, Philly tough. Alex Mazzone is kind of the cerebral one. Zulik, That's the one you got to watch out for. Low-key good, number 44, Brendan Zulik.
It was Melendez who said in practice, working against those guys, they're no friends.
No.
At the end of the day, they shake hands, they love each other, but they're trying to make each other better on those Blue Jays practices. It's a 4-4 game. Last man on the score sheet, the precocious freshman Braden Erksa, who had the overtime game winner earlier in the season at Ohio State. The Buckeyes locked in as the number 5 seed in the upcoming Big 10 tournament. It's Erksa with the ball now. Smith knocked the cage away. Erksa turns and scores. The goal was off kilter after Smith ran into it. No harm for Erksa.
And that's just a mental lapse by Scott Smith, not knowing where he was. He just runs into the goal, and he's helpless at that point. The goal becomes a pick for Braden Erksa. He just goes top side as it comes off his moorings, and Erksa is able to slip it past Brian Ruppel. Smart, heady play by Braden Erksa.
Dixie, you were talking about Kester and the defensive job that they've done this season with the Blue Jays. How about that stat where you read they've kept their opponents under their seasonal average in 12 of the 14 games this season that they've played. They're hard to crack and hard to solve Marseille and the Blue Jay defense.
And you just hit it on the head, Joe. Not only is the defense improved, but they're getting better goaltending in 2023. And Marseille, he's been good. He's been a little streaky as of late. He's played well so far tonight. But this is a much improved defense going against the defense that everybody knows, and that is the Maryland Terrapins.
Erksa with goals back-to-back. It's 5-4 Maryland. 24 seconds remaining in the half. The ball in the cross of Dylan Bauer. Bauer speeding in against Geppert. Bauer will invert, then find Angelis. Waning stages of the opening half. Collison keeps it hot. Degnan fires. Ruppel shuffled over to make the save. Bauer comes up with it off the turf. Degnan, not enough time there as the second quarter comes to its end with Maryland in front by 1.
And that fires up the defense. You can see Zappatello pounding his chest a little bit. Brian Ruppel demonstrative coming out of the crease. That is a good stop by the Maryland defense. That was a good look by Degnan, fought off by the freshman netminder.
Terps stepping off to their dressing room, likewise for the Blue Jays. After 30 minutes, a 5-4 advantage for John Tillman and his Terps. Coach, with the score reading what it does, how would you grade your team's offense in the first half?
I think we're really fortunate. I think we probably had 2 possessions more than 30 seconds in that second quarter. I just felt like we had some really quick possessions, a couple silly turnovers, and really in those timeouts, we were just trying to tell our guys, catch your breath. Let's just make sure we don't take those exchanges for granted, and let's give our defense a little bit of a break. I thought our defense really hung in there. Brian's doing a good job, and Luke started off pretty strong.
Coach, when you go into the locker room and you stress 2 or 3 things that the Terps need to do to bring this thing home, what are those things?
I just think we need to have more poise on offense. We're just not doing a great job there. Listen, our kids are competing. I love our guys. They're giving great effort. We just need to work a little smarter and have a little poise with the ball. And defensively, we got to realize they're going to be long possessions. This offense, you see basically the legacy of Bobby Benson. So many things that he did, you could see in that. So we just have to be really patient. We got to be on point. We got to communicate well, and then we got to get the ball out of our end.
Coach Tillman, we appreciate the input. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
2 quarters down, an appreciative lacrosse fan base here inside of CQ Stadium. The intermission's activities to follow. 5-4 Maryland. Fans in the stands at CQ Stadium have seen a pretty good lacrosse game to this point. 5-4 Maryland over Johns Hopkins. Before we start the third quarter, It's Hopkins head coach Peter Milliman with us. And Coach, earlier this week you said you have to defend well, not give up the middle of the field. How would you review your defensive effort in the first half?
Defensively, I thought we were playing pretty well. I think they're competing pretty hard, getting scrappy, caused a couple turnovers, picking up ground balls. I've been pleased with that. It's a tough group to defend, so I think that's something that we're doing fairly well.
Coach, what was the message to the guys in the locker room at halftime?
We got to keep fighting for tough ground balls. I thought, we lost that in the first quarter, but the second quarter was much better. Like I said in the pregame, the possessions are going to be pretty important today. And, we need to handle the ball on the offensive end. We can't get turnovers. We got to be more patient, more disciplined, get deeper into clocks. Slides are hard to come by, too.
Coach Milliman, thanks for the knowledge. We appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Back to run his Blue Jays sideline goes Peter Milliman. 5-4 advantage for the Terrapins. At the face-off dot, Coach Milliman stays with Tyler Dunn. Dunn, who was the remedy to Luke Weirman. Weirman was running roughshod early on against Matt Naruski. Milliman said that Naruski needed to be the trendsetter for his team today. It's turned out that it's been the understudy, Tyler Dunn, working so well now. The face-off story level at 6 apiece. Johns Hopkins has won 5 of the last 6 overall.
Well, and it pays to have a ground ball magnet like Jack Hawley on the wing. That was a tremendous ground ball that he picked up under pressure. One of the Blue Jay captains.
Hawley, a captain, played his high school ball at St. Anthony's on Long Island. Melendez working in against Makar. Just one of many marquee matchups, one-on-one on the field between these two great teams. Blue Jays in the blue. Inside roll, Collison comes back and scores! Matt Collison, a whirling dervish.
Collison has been an offensive force all year for Johns Hopkins. Kind of hit the freshman wall the last 2-3 weeks, but responded with a gigantic game against Ohio State last weekend. And this is just big boy lacrosse. This is just a big, strong athlete lowering his shoulder, soaking the pressure, turning away, and sticking it. The evolution of Collison's game, he can dodge from behind the goal and goal line extended when earlier in the year he was exclusively sweeping from up top.
Back to the draw again. This one's goose to the wing, and Mazzone comes up with it for the Blue Jays. Mark, there have been only 4, count them, 4 Johns Hopkins freshman midfielders ever to score 20 or more goals. I think you're going to recognize the other names. Joel Tinney,
yes,
Michael Kimmel, and a gentleman named Paul Raber.
That's some pretty darn good company. And you didn't even mention players like Del Dressel, 4-time first-team All-American.
Here we go, Will! Here we go, Will! Nothing. Yeah, Will! Yeah, Will! Yeah, Will!
Gets too high, and Angeles just cuts it inside. That is an experienced player taking a freshman to school in the rivalry. Great job, Jacob Angeles. Quicker than a hiccup on that dodge.
Angeles, in the Big 10 tournament last year against Maryland, went for 3 goals and an assist, his second tally. Russell Melendez picked up on the outside by Makar as we now hit the 2. Go off the swim inside, and he just sent it high. Diving effort from the zone. It's Trader who plays football in the fall with the Terps in their defensive backfield. Now one of John Tillman's short stick defensive midfielders. Ball down, it comes up for Geppert. Geppert, who wears number 20 to honor his late brother Jeff, who died in 2017. Terrapin's on the run. Red fires, he scores! Nick Red!
Celebrating. Look at the great look. Geppert to Burles to Nick Red. Red's been making plays all game. This one time he's going to call his own number. And this is how Maryland beat Penn State. They got 4 goals out of their short stick D middies. When Maryland starts humming in transition, watch out.
Nick Red's first career goal coming at a very opportune time. It levels the score at 6 apiece. Blue Jays and Terrapins at CQ Stadium in College Park. Weirman gets the draw, going right to the cooker. Fast break here. Snapshot that's blocked before it reached Marcille on the end line. Maltz was there to... Braden Urksa, who has a 3-point game working for himself. Number 10 in the white. Sharing the rock now with Kyle Long. Long, who struck in the opening quarter for the Terps. First appearance we've seen on the night for Owen Murphy, number 55, who's been dealing with injuries the last few weeks. A transfer from Johns Hopkins. Urksa gets alone. He scores!
Yeah, baby. Let's go.
Like that, that's going to be your end result. Urksa with his 3rd goal of the evening.
Urksa's biggest goal performance of the season came earlier in the year against Albany. He racked up 4. He's got 3 tricks this season. Weirman and Dunn at the face-off X. Ball down, comes up for the Blue Jays. Dunn has had the upper hand in his individual battle against Weirman in this game tonight.
Wow, I thought that when he missed that first-time grounder, I thought it was going to be trouble. Great composure, collected himself, picks up the GB, gets it out of harm's way. Boy, we have got ourselves a game.
It was 5-4 Maryland at the half. 2 teams have exchanged 2 markers each in this 3rd frame. Casey McDermott, points in 4 of his last 5 for the Blue Jays. Evans drifts back behind the cage. McDermott picked up by Trader. On the exchange, it's Evans. Turns the corner, little question mark move against Lacey. Shot clock's at 20 for the Blue Jays. Ball down. Just trickles out of bounds. Back to Maryland.
Yeah, these are the turnovers that are going to kill you. And again, I'm going to point to Peshko getting inside, just missed that shot. And then the reversal of fortunes, the red goal, now the Urksa goal. Maryland is a team that always knows how to respond.
And then Dante Trader levitating at midfield, drawing oohs and ahs from the lacrosse fans assembled at CQ. Long inverted against Juronsky. Maryland at home here in the white jerseys. Leading by 1. It has been a game on the teeter-totter, back and forth. Urksa on the go. Stops on a dime, finds Long. Keep it hot there, ball down, intercepted and played away. Mazzone is off to the races. Mazzone runs in. Fast break time for the Blue Jays. Feed it down low. Degnan scores! Back
and forth we go. Alex Mazzone has been such a difference maker for this Johns Hopkins defense. Look at him with the interception caused turnover. He outraces Jack Corse and is able to protect his stick. And I love how Melendez kept his feet moving. Drags across the face of the defense, finds Garrett Degnan, and that is as automatic as it comes.
11 multi-goal games for Degnan this season. Top of the screen, you see what he has done throughout the campaign. Against Maryland a season ago in the Big 10 tournament, he had 4. These Terps have won the last 5 installments in the rivalry with Johns Hopkins. They come into tonight's tilt. 2 teams in the top 7 in the land. Number 7, Dylan Bauer, has possession for Johns Hopkins.
Joe, a pre-whistle face-off violation. A little weird that it comes this late in the game.
Collison's pass sends the Blue Jays into a 6-on-6. Angelis hovering there with his defender hung up. Rupel gets back into the crease. This one's goosed wide by Brooks English. It stays Blue Jay ball. Still plenty of time on the shot clock.
That's one thing, Angelis. Just don't force it. He's forced a couple here tonight.
This rip goes wide from Collison, backed up on the end line by Dylan Bauer, who hails from Park City, Utah. He'll bring it downhill against Jack McDonald, long stick midfielder for the Terps. 51 in the white. Melendez looking to go. Makar got picked off there. Brett recovers well. Angelis from the top with 18 seconds to shoot. Blue Jays a long way from the cooker. Degnan driving in. Here comes the double. The slides in the back. Perfectly coordinated. Maryland on the takeaway. Zappatello on the run. Zappatello has goals in 2 of his last 3. His pass is on the bounce. Urksa rockets one upstairs.
The typical DNA of a Maryland defense is not to slide. But they are coming hard and they are coming hot tonight. Kohler making the play. Zappatello picks it up. And Urksa with the bounce pass. I don't think it was intentional. You gotta be smarter if you're Johns Hopkins. I understand the matchup. Degnan, when you get that stick in your right hand in no man's land, they are coming for you. You gotta recognize, get the ball out of your stick.
Urksa tying his young career best. He had 4 against Albany. He's got 4 today. This one puts the Terrapins on top of the Blue Jays by 1. Ground ball drilled, looking for the face-off possession. It's kicked towards the sideline. Zuluk is there, and Mazzone, and it's Mazzone with a vacuum cleaner for the Blue Jays.
Wow, he's such a terrific player. And he played his last couple years in Georgetown as a long stick midfielder, so the adjustment down to close has been a seamless one for Alex Mazzone.
Mazzone's high school days at Ward Melville on Long Island in New York. He said he looked up to Johnny Day. Day wore number 44 at Ward Melville. It was someone that he fashioned his game about. And McDermott sends it wide.
And another really good Hopkins lefty, Robbie Dorr.
Physical customer.
We shared some good stories about Rob on that phone call.
8-7 Maryland as we reach the midway mark of this 3rd quarter. The offense is heating up. Pass inside. Bang! It's Peshko.
This is great. This is what makes people become lacrosse fans. High-level action, no letdown, back and forth. Here comes your point guard. Draws a slide and finds the cutter to the hoop. Jonathan Peshko, and he just got it past Brian Rupel, nicked off of his left shoulder. Terrific finish for number 51 in blue.
Nobody in the conference has more assists this season than Johns Hopkins. Pretty passing from the guy who leads them in assists, Jacob Angelis. And the Peshko goal, his 2nd on the night. Brings us level at 8.
What a night. Great weather, terrific crowd, high energy, high level lacrosse. This is what a rivalry game is all about.
The skies have brightened here in College Park. Heavy rain about an hour before face-off, which was 6 p.m. Eastern time. Whittier marked by Jaronski. Zach Whittier's offensive game growing as this season has gone along. Dad was an inside linebacker at Maryland. Zach's father, Scott. Urksa, who has 4, finds Kelly, who's been relatively quiet by his standards. Marcille makes the stave there on Whittier. And back come the Blue Jays looking for some numbers. Jaronski brings it across midfield.
Whittier's dad played for Bobby Ross, if I'm not mistaken. Big Maryland football news this week. The script on the helmet and the uniforms making a comeback. That was what the Bobby Ross era teams wore here at Maryland, and Mike Loxley welcoming that back to the football program.
Marcille's 7th stop mark gets Johns Hopkins the ball now. Off the sideline comes Casey McDermott, driving in against Red. Angeles behind the cage. Again, Rupel there to flush him out and trade him off to Zappatello. Peshko, who has 2, with 6 minutes to go in the third. Deadlocked at 8. From the top, Melendez hesitates, then fires. Just trimmed that a little too fine.
Maryland defense has done a nice job on Melendez. We saw him score 4 goals in the first quarter against Penn State a couple weeks ago with 4 different shooting mechanisms, 4 different shooting angles. He's crafty.
Behind the back there, the effort from Grimes that goes wide. Melendez, the youngest of 4 children. His mom, Izzy, played lacrosse at Loyola. Egnon's tied up, ball down at the heart of the Maryland defense. Whistles blare out as bodies fly and hit the deck.
Degnan delivering some chin music to Makar, but that was after the play was being whistled dead for a loose ball push on Maryland.
Reset of the shot clock for Johns Hopkins. Shade more than 5 minutes with which to work in the third quarter. Grimes digging in against Trader. Melendez from the top against Makar. Very few extra man opportunities in this game thus far. Angeles continuing to work 6-on-6 against Red. Shot clock's at 20. Angeles rolls back. Here comes the double. And another turnover for the Blue Jays right into the waiting cross of Jack McDonald.
Yeah, just not good decisions. If it's not there, just pull it out. No reason to force. I mean, you got the extra possession with the push call. Take it easy. Relax. To be successful is to be judicious in this atmosphere and in this stage of the game.
Johns Hopkins and Penn State tied for 2nd in shooting percentage this season. Michigan, number 1. The same Wolverines who will occupy the number 4 seed in the upcoming Big Ten tournament. They'll play their first ever Big Ten tournament home game on October 29th.
Yeah, won their first Big Ten tournament game a couple years ago, a quarterfinal victory over Ohio State. And the big 3 for the Wolverines showed up last night. Mikey Boehm, Josh Zawada, and Ryan Cohen as the referee reverses. Originally it was going to be Hopkins' ball out of bounds, but the far side official comes over, says there was a push. Possession stays with the Terps.
And Owen Murphy, jogging with him, Cody Ince.
Murphy looks a lot better, Joe. We've seen him the last couple of weeks with a heavily bandaged ankle. No wrap that we can see, and he is moving a lot better tonight.
When he's right, he's an awfully tough cover with a wicked shot. Brennan crossing over there, takes this one off of the turf, but then bounced it to the sideline. Turnover back to Johns Hopkins with 3.5 to go as Coach Tillman laments that on the sideline.
You can see the frustration, and you just mouthed the words, Jack, come on. I mean, Brennan was flat-footed, didn't react to the ball. Then when he dropped it, the ground ball pickup. He geeks it out of bounds. Those are critical mistakes that Coach Tillman addressed at halftime with us.
Blue Jay ball, tail end of the third quarter. A little bit more than 3 minutes left. It's Evans in possession. Ryan Evans, points in 5 of his last 7. 2-goal games against Navy, Delaware, and Rutgers in Big 10 play. He has it once more, zips it on the perimeter. Some shake and bake coming from Collison. Trying to overpower his check. He pounds that one into the turf. Towards the end line, Melendez in a battle with Makar. Out of bounds, Makar protests. It's going to be Blue Jay ball with 26 seconds to shoot.
Now the officials are coming together again. Let's take a peek. It's still a shot until there. Melendez changes the impetus of the ball when he redirects it. It certainly looked like it hit off of number 31 in blue, but the officials come together. They both agree that it went off of a white player in the form of Brett Makar, and Hopkins gets the ball.
Bauer speeds in against Geppert. Johns Hopkins in the visiting blue. Maryland here at home in white. 2 of the 3 losses this season for the Terps have come on this field. In an 8-8 draw with the Blue Jays. Plenty of time to shoot for Johns Hopkins. Collison will direct traffic and then drift behind against Kohler. Against the short stick defensive midfielder. Lowers the shoulder, turns on the question mark. He scores! Collison with a rocket.
Maryland fans voicing their displeasure. They thought that should have been Maryland ball. Blue Jays catch a break, get possession. Collison has come to play. The freshman using every inch of his 6'4" frame to drive upfield, create separation. The question mark roofs it. 16 in blue is pumped, and the Blue Jays regain the lead. His teammates are happy.
Taking a peek at that Johns Hopkins sideline. Collison and Peshko producing from the midfield ranks.
The Twin Towers standing next to each other. Number 51 Peshko, 16 Collison, each of them with 2 goals so far in this game. Both of them stand 6'4" and are formidable.
You just saw at the top of the screen, it's been a while since the Blue Jays have celebrated a win against their arch rival. They lead by 1. The lead goal coming from Collison, his 2nd of the day. Syracuse at 38 in the white for the Terps. Mosey's in, plays it back behind for Kelly. Whittier against Jaronski. Zuluk is close by. Snapshot, Maltz, he scores! Daniel Maltz.
Terrapins with the answer. Maltz has improved his dodging, but his bread and butter remains shooting. And where he's improved exponentially is his stretch shooting, his range shooting. Nothing special, just ball rotation. Hopkins, for whatever reason, overloads one side of the field, and there's no closeout on number 37 in white. From about 15, he skips it past Marcial.
Maltz had the first on the day for the Terps, and now the last, his 2nd of the game. A week ago, we saw Maryland only score 1 goal in the last 22 minutes against Rutgers. Their offense has been sharper today. Face-off win again for Johns Hopkins' Tyler Dunn. Raposo swims past Luke Weirman in 6-on-6 at this end of the field for the Blue Jays. At the tail end of the third quarter, 60 seconds left in it.
I mean, that's a huge storyline. This Luke Weirman was easily winning the faceoffs to himself in the first quarter until Dunn came in, and he has really neutralized the Maryland Terrapin faceoff ace, and he has flipped the field for Johns Hopkins. They were playing a ton of defense in the first quarter. He's allowed them to get the touches necessary to stay in this game.
Weirman, 2 times this season, 5 times in his career, the Big Ten Specialist of the Week. Now Grimes will just chill, basically with the game clock and shot clock in unison. Working it from the outside. Long drive, score! Melendez finds a home top corner.
Hopkins has Maryland off kilter a little bit. Again, this is a defense that doesn't slide a ton, and they are going because Hopkins is taking advantage. They're winning matchups, and right there you see Geppert step out, and it's a slow rotation. Donovan Lacey's just slow to get back to the backside, and Melendez, with that type of time and room, that is going to be the end result. Pay dirt.
Just a reminder what's at stake. If Johns Hopkins wins, they're the number 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament that they host at Homewood. Maryland would be the number 3. Penn State, victorious last night, would be the number 1 seed if the Blue Jays hold, leading 10-9 late in the third.
Yeah, again, 4, 5, and 6 has been solved. Michigan will host Ohio State next weekend.
That's a quick rematch.
Just played last night, 19-4 Wolverine victory. I'm not sure what's happening here. It was a push call against Maryland. The referees clearly signaled going the other way, and now there seems to be some confusion. Here we go. I see. They had to put the attack and defense back behind the restraining line as there was no release call.
Ryan Evans with the ball. His grandpa, Joe Cowan, 3-time All-American at Johns Hopkins, 2 times National Player of the Year.
Father Dan Evans, teammate of mine at Johns Hopkins.
Ryan's
Defenseman.
son of Dan and Joanna. Melendez late in the quarter. Bullied by Trader. That pass comes to the sideline, and that's where this third quarter will come to an end. It was 5-4 Maryland at the halftime break. The guys in the white jerseys playing here at home. Blue Jays responding, though. A very solid offensive effort in the third. 15 minutes left in the rivalry. The rivalry trophy, one heavy crab. It's Johns Hopkins with an outstanding third quarter. 6 goals marking that frame alone. They take a 10-9 lead. The Blue Jays are the only team to have a winning record over Maryland all time.
This is a fun lacrosse game. That third quarter was fantastic. Back and forth, both these teams executing at a high level, not backing down. Can't wait. We're buckled up for the final 15.
That's Mark Dixon. I'm Joe Beninati as we shout out thanks to all the men and women in our technical crew here in College Park, Maryland, and back at headquarters at Big 10 Network. If Maryland wins, they're the number 1 seed in the upcoming Big 10 tournament. Johns Hopkins would fall to 3rd by virtue of their overtime loss to Penn State. If the Blue Jays win, they're the number 2 in the tournament seed. Maryland would be 3, Penn State would be the 1.
Crazy. The preseason rankings had both Penn State and Johns Hopkins in the bottom tier.
Murphy, stonewalled by Marcille. The netminder for the Blue Jays with another kick save. He's been in double figures 9 times this season as Jaronski comes up with a ground ball. Blue Jays on the road in blue. Jaronski zigs and zags and snakes his way through. A successful clear for the Blue Jays.
This is a game, I know it's cliche, but you tighten your chin strap just that much more. And that was an example of it. Brett Martin digging out a ground ball in the corner, gets drilled legally, but it's physical down there. You step in between the lines, you are going to walk out damaged in some way, shape, or form.
The lights starting to take full effect here at CQ Stadium. What was a 6 p.m. Eastern time start Overcast skies, rain prior to the face-off. Inside there, Rupel with a great save on Grimes.
Wow. Brian Rupel read that thing all the way, stabs it out of midair. That should have been a goal. Great look from McDermott. Better reaction from Rupel.
Half a dozen saves for Rupel, 2 times a freshman of the week this season. Geppert feeds it inside, score! Maltz on the finish and in some pain.
This is a 2-goal turnaround. Instead of it being 11-9 Hopkins, Maryland is able to make it level. This is a sweet look from Casey McDermott. Grimes goes high to high. Rupel denies him. And then Geppert coming down. Look at that beautiful feed over to Dylan Maltz. And he looked like he took a stick in the head. Glad to see 37 back on his feet after the nice finish.
7 multi-goal games for Maltz this season. He has 11 career goals against the Blue Jays. This one makes it 10-10. A rivalry game to savor between the Blue Jays and the Terrapins. A couple of games last year that weren't very close. This one, extremely so. McDonald gets the ground ball for Maryland. Possession here at the offensive end. Luke Weirman, the outstanding face-off man who's run into a tough customer in Tyler Dunn this evening. After he had the upper hand against Matt Naruski from the start. Now, the second midfield for John Tillman. Spanos, Whittier, Syracuse. They've been so valuable during this campaign. Can they get Maryland back on top? Whittier off the split from left to right. On a night when freshman Braden Erksa has 5 points. Maltz with a hat trick. Labors away from Zuluk. Shot clock at 30. Syracuse with some get up and go. Hatcheted there on the outside. Off the sweep, it's Whittier. He fires and he laced that one wide of the goal.
I think Hopkins has done a nice job on this second midfield. Both these defenses have done a nice job, but the second midfield not beating Hopkins tonight.
Erksa hands the ball off. Syracuse powering his way in. The skip pass was knocked down and taken away neatly by Carson Brown.
Now, you want to talk about a young man who has evolved this season. Number 11 in blue, Carson Brown, freshman out of Monroe Township, New Jersey. He has grown up in a hurry with the injury to Patrick Deems, their starting long stick midfielder. He has done a wonderful job to become the LSM1.
We were told that we would not see Deems in this game. There was a possibility to see midfielder Cam Chauvet. I saw him warming up Marseille prior to the game. I don't know that 17 has been on the field for the Blue Jays today. Evans turns on Lacey and then comes up Gimpy.
Oh no, he's had some injury problems, and that could be a hamstring or a cramp or something of that nature.
Hobbling on his way to the midfield line, now subbing out. McDermott comes in. McDermott full blast against Lacey. Fires. Rupel makes the easy stop there, knee high.
A little bit of an advantage with McDermott coming out of the box. He come downhill, head of steam, but the shot, poor location. Rupel makes the easy stop.
Kohler helping on the clear for the Terps in white as we close in on the 5-minute mark of the fourth. 10-10 lacrosse game. Brennan ready to go. Jack Brennan. Only tallies, though, for him in 2 of the last 5. Give and go back for Brennan, just out of reach. The officials awarding the ball to Maryland.
Yeah, say it deflect off of a Hopkins stick. Possession stays with the Terps.
Long veteran leader, 23 in the white. Brennan gives it right back to Kyle Long. Against Brett Martin. Here comes the help from Zuluk. Horace is a very good cutter, 22 in the white. Kelly gets into the alley. He hung his stick, and Jaronski deflects that out of bounds.
Yeah, good defense by Jaronski. Forced the lefty Kelly to put the ball on his right stick, and then got a little bit of it on the follow-through.
Long with 15 seconds to shoot. Odin Zuluk is there for Johns Hopkins. Chorus. No room afforded him. Kelly working down under. The feed to the interior. Marcial finds it in the goal crease. Outletting for Jaronski. Back come the Blue Jays, still tied up at 10.
Yeah, Hopkins putting the shorty on Kelly. Not a dodger. Terrific shooter, but not a dodger. He became a little bit of a dodger and feeder on that possession, and it worked out in favor of Johns Hopkins.
Since 2022, the Blue Jays are 16-3 when they get 11 goals. The next one they put on the board will be their 11th. Grimes on the move against Trader, who wants to hear none of that. Bouncer here, a weak bid, answered quickly and played to safety by McDonald. Full speed ahead.
Boy, you got to make a decision if you're Brendan Grimes when you get to that area of the field. You got to shoot it. And that time he kind of turtled up and got the ball taken away from him.
15th turnover for the Jays. A Terps team that's had a player with a hat trick in 68 of the last 69 games. Both Maltz and Urksa have done that in this one. Spanos, quiet for the most part. Syracuse leaves it back behind. Urksa bothered there all the way by Zuluk. Carson Brown comes up with a scoop, and Brown's got a fast break. Brown leading the Blue Jays in. Crossfield Melendez, keep it high. Angeles, he scores!
You want to look up the definition of man ball. This is a video version. Hopkins puts it on the carpet. And watch Zuluk. You take ball, I got man. Great communication between 11 and 44 in blue. And this is a picture of beauty. Skip pass, the one more. Angeles. Look at that frozen rope from Garrett Degnan. The one-on-one, top shelf action.
Melendez's third helper on the day, and it's a jubilant reaction on the sideline for the Blue Jays. 11-10 in this great game. Neither team has had more than a one-goal advantage. That's where we are right now on Big 10 Network. While the action continues in men's lacrosse between Hopkins and Maryland, looks like it's a nice day for lacrosse. Women's lacrosse action in Evanston, Maryland and Northwestern to come. If we run a little bit long, if we're heavy, that game would begin on the Fox Sports app.
Must be nice in Northwestern and Evanston. They're playing outside, Joe.
Look pretty good.
Yeah. Normally they play in that beautiful indoor facility.
Ball down off this draw. It comes up for Kaufman of the Blue Jays. He gets attacked. It becomes a rugby scrum. And out of the pack comes Johns Hopkins with the ball and Scott Smith.
Wow. This game has had a little bit of everything here tonight. Again, think about last year, 22-4 at the end of the third quarter. Ultimately a 22-7 Terp victory. Not happening here today. Scott Smith puts on his big boy pants, makes a heavy check, comes up with a tough ground ball.
Since the rivalry has gone Big 10 back in 2015, Johns Hopkins just 4-9 against Maryland. Leading by one, looking for the first two-goal advantage of any kind in this game.
Yeah, they won 2 Big 10 tournament championships, Johns Hopkins did, 2015, 2018, under the leadership of Dave Petramala and his staff.
Degnan, who as usual has been a factor for the Blue Jays, puts it in the cross of McDermott. Then Angeles. He and his mates refer to Jacob as Angel.
Angel.
He's been otherworldly at times tonight. On the go, inside roll, bounce down to the turf. Ruppel stays with it from Dylan Bauer.
That's the second time I feel like Bauer's just been too fixated on scoring. Just working a little bit.
Dante Trader bulldozing in, lost the handle there. Back comes Martin for the Blue Jays. One short stick defensive midfielder to another.
And guess who didn't give up an inch? Taking the ball away from Dante Trader. That was Jacob Angelis. Running back on defense just to disrupt number 5 in white. Enough to get the ball out of his stick.
Maryland has won 3 of the last 4 here against Johns Hopkins. 6:20 left in the 4th. Blue Jays slowing the tempo on the lead by 1. The lead goal provided by Angelis. This is English on the go against Lacey. English feeds it back behind the cage. Melendez jitterbugs, then finds Peshko with Dante Trader attached. Peshko drawing a couple defenders, and this is going to be awarded to Maryland.
Moving pick called against Johns Hopkins. Take your pick right there. Moving pick or award from Jonathan Peshko.
Rupel and the Terps to clear. We mentioned how they lead the nation in successful clears. Here's another. Trader spots McDonald. McDonald thinking about it, going to the goal. He fanned on it on his way down. Zuluk comes up with the ball.
Hopkins is just collapsing on anybody that gets into their neighborhood, not allowing any clean shots to get off against Tim Marseille.
5:20 to go. Bauer comes to get it. Points in 6 straight. McDermott, and then for Collison, the hard-shooting freshman. Donovan Lacey keeps tabs on him. Angelis will swing it. 40 seconds in the shot clock. 5 minutes exactly in the game. On the dead run, that feed was a poor one. Well off target for Bauer. Maryland says thanks, and a chance for the Terps now to tie.
I didn't like that for a variety of reasons. It was a high-risk, low-reward pass. And Bauer's also got a pole on him, number 20, John Geppert, which means another very capable Dodger had a shorty matchup. Hopkins didn't recognize it, instead turns it over.
Maryland seeing the ball go back to the Blue Jays, however. Johns Hopkins holding Maryland to 10. Maryland's had 10 goals in every home game since May of 2015.
Offsides against the Terps, a mental mistake, something you do not see out of a Terrapin lacrosse team very often.
Time's a-wasted. Blue Jays with a mark of 10-4. If they win, they're the number 2 seed in the Big 10 tournament. That'll be hosted at their place, Homewood Field. Maryland would be the 3. They would square off on the 29th against Rutgers here, if the score holds. Grimes against Geppert. Back behind for Melendez with Makar. That's been a marquee matchup all day long. Makar drops the hammer. Melendez on the dive. He scores! A brilliant individual effort.
Russell Melendez can score in so many different ways. Brooks English, I like the pick. And Melendez decides not to use it, and he just gets enough space on Makar. That pick, Makar thought he was going to have to go through the pick and maybe switch off with number 5, Dante Trader. Melendez changes direction, gets leverage, and puts a beautiful backhand in the back of the cage.
A handful of points for Melendez. 2 + 3 = 5. Off the draw, it's McDonald who steals it. Steals it for Maryland. It looked like Dunn was going to come up with another face-off win against Weirman, but McDonald with great wing play gets the Terps the ball. Desperate times now for Maryland, trailing by 2. First time they've been down by 2 in this game.
And it's money time, and look what line is on the field for the Terps. Their second line, Spanos, Siracusa, Whittier. They played heroes in Columbus a couple weeks ago. Can they replicate that?
Whittier from the top. Siracusa fires. He snapped that one wide, backed up by Maltz. Spanos, in an earlier game this season in this stadium, posted a 3-goal hat trick against Notre Dame. Maltz has the hat trick tonight. This is Spanos with the ball down on the deck. Worked over by Mazzone. 3 minutes 3 seconds to go. A pass that's high gets away from Maltz. Ground ball for the Blue Jays. And Bowden Zulek brings it across. Now expect the Blue Jays to spend some time.
Without a doubt, and Maryland over the last 2.5 minutes has been beating themselves. The offsides, now the sloppy turnover. Something you don't see. But again, it's interesting to point out that this is a completely different Maryland team from a year ago, but they have been in these pressure cooker situations many a time this season.
Backpedaling away, McDermott. Shares the ball with Melendez. All around the perimeter now. Degnan content to walk it back towards midfield. Maryland's Colin Burlace trying to rescue the ball back for the Terps. 2 minutes to go.
Don't get too relaxed if you're Hopkins. We saw this a couple weeks ago at Penn State, where I really thought the Blue Jays mismanaged the end of that game, ended up losing in overtime.
Angeles jitterbugs in, fired it wide of Rupel on the sidelines. Maryland wins the backup.
Not a smart decision. You pull everybody over, and I don't know if I'm going to come down too hard on Angeles. He did have leverage and a shot. You got to back that up if you're the Blue Jays.
If you're the Terps now at the offensive end, who are you looking for?
I mean, that second midfield, I think it's going to be, well, the first midfield's checking in, so I'm looking for number 23, Kyle Long, to make a play.
Timeout, Terps. Maryland takes the timeout with 1:32 to go. And a lot of nervous folks in the stands rooting for Maryland here at CQ Stadium in College Park.
Incredible fan base. You can hear in our headsets all night long, "Let's go Terps." A lot of youth lacrosse players out there cheering the Turtles on. What a great night. What a great weekend. What a great environment. National television, under the lights, rivalry, and it has lived up to Hopkins, Maryland lacrosse.
We've addressed just how important that man, Jacob Angeles, is to the Blue Jays. When you have time, take a peek at how he's performed tonight.
Look at the nice finish, the nifty behind the back. This is a guy who began his career at Johns Hopkins as a midfielder, switched to attack because he's such a Swiss Army knife. He can score, he can feed, he rides hard. We saw the confidence running back to body up Dante Trader, play a little defense, and create a turnover. Jacob Angeles, the conductor of this Johns Hopkins offense. Him and Russell Melendez were absent in an earlier game against Loyola, and the Blue Jays struggled on offense mightily.
Blue Jays trying to spoil the party, the 1973 Maryland Terrapins Golden Anniversary Party being honored here. Pre-game and at halftime at CQ Stadium. Mark, I saw a Sports Illustrated article that suggested then Maryland coach Buddy Beardmore had the boys relax a little bit with a few beverages prior to the big game. That doesn't happen nowadays, does it?
I don't know. You tell me.
No, not when you're battling for the big crab, the rivalry trophy that's on the line.
I would advise not trying to pick that thing up if you're half in the bag. That is for sure. It is a thing of beauty, but it weighs a ton.
With Johns Hopkins coach Peter Milliman, it's the first time under Coach Milliman that Hopkins has come into this Maryland clash with a winning record. They have the lead right now and 86 seconds left to endure against the Terps. Maltz worked over by Juronsky. Here comes the double.
Shorty's on Maltz and Kelly.
The pass that's high, backed up by Urksa. Urksa against Zulek. Just over a minute left. 40 in the shot clock. Long from the top with Brennan. Chorus. Draws two. Move it inside. Shot, score! Maltz! Maltz has the last 3 Maryland goals and 4 on the night.
We mentioned Maltz and Kelly on shorty matchups. That doesn't mean they're going to dodge. That means they're going to put these short stick defenders in the wash. Kelly with a beautiful look to Maltz. And Maltz is standing here, 1-100, 2-100. He's wide open in the middle of that Johns Hopkins defense. Pretty ball movement by the Maryland Terrapins.
And now an enormous face-off between Luke Weirman and Tyler Dunn. Out of the pack. It comes up for Gepper. Maryland has the chance to tie in the final 48 seconds. Timeout, Maryland. In a whale of a game in College Park, it's 12-11 Blue Jays.
Luke Weirman and Tyler Dunn's sticks are intertwined at the 50-yard line. The two of them are trying to untangle their sticks. Referees are coming over to lend a hand. I don't think I have ever seen this before.
Talk about getting up close and personal.
I mean, they're walking off the field shoulder to shoulder, and you think they're kind of chirping at one another,
Head
but
to
they're
head.
just trying to untangle themselves. Two guys that have been battling all night.
We just showed you Jacob Angelis' performance for the Blue Jays. How about Daniel Maltz for the Terps with a 4 spot himself?
This is a player that 2 years ago scored 50 goals. Didn't play much last year, only on the extra man, and he comes back in 2023 with a renewed sense of purpose, with extra drive, and he's worked on his long-range shooting. That is his specialty, though, operating in the phone booth, in tight, close to the goal. Gigantic goal for Maryland, and gets them to within 1.
Maltz with 4 goal efforts this season against Albany, Princeton, and now tonight against the Blue Jays.
I mean, think about that. You score 50 goals, and then you have to give way for players like Keegan Kahn and John Donville. Talented players that helped you go perfect and win a national championship. A lot of guys would hit the portal or just get dejected and not work hard anymore. The opposite with Maltz.
John Tillman says of the Terps, when the offense is working right, they change the fields, they put pressure on in a variety of different ways. Now, in search of the tying tally, are the Terrapins, as we're underway with the women's lacrosse action. Maryland and Northwestern battling for the #1 seed in the women's Big 10 tourney. That game is underway on the Fox Sports app with the Terps and Wildcats.
Second midfield in the game for Maryland. This is the confidence. I think here in College Park, the first midfield and the second midfield have become equals.
Whittier working to the outside against Juronsky. Less than 40 to go. Syracuse marked by Mazzone. Maltz wants it in his cross now. He's got the short stick defensive midfielder Martin on it. Martin stays right on those hands. Maltz sweeping. Gets a little screen. Whittier on the split dodge from left to right. The pass is high! It's a turnover to the Blue Jays. 17 seconds away from victory lane.
Really an unforced error. A little bit of pressure, but not immense. Hopkins doesn't even have to clear this bad boy. They can keep the ball on the defensive end.
Marcil heaves it 90 yards. On a frozen rope, he hits Melendez. Melendez going to the open cage. His pass is high. Final ticks of the clock, and the Blue Jays win against their arch rivals, knocking off the Terps in College Park, 12-11. First win for the Blue Jays, Mark, since 2019 in the big rivalry matchup.
What an incredible night. And here is our bracket, Joe. Ohio State travels to Ann Arbor to play Michigan, and Rutgers has to pay a visit to College Park to try to get their first ever Big 10 victory over Maryland. Congratulations, Penn State. You're outright regular season champion in the Big 10.
A hotly contested game between the Terps and the Blue Jays, and the rivalry trophy, the Big Crab, is making its way to Baltimore. The Blue Jays with a game-winning tally from Melendez in the fourth.
Again, you talk about last year, 22-7 loss. Embarrassing, absolutely embarrassing for the Blue Jays. Hopkins is back. What an incredible performance by this Johns Hopkins team. What a night. What a lacrosse game.
That was a treat for Mark Dixon, for all the men and women in our crew. Joe Beninati thanking you for your time. Johns Hopkins knocks off Maryland by the final of 12-11. We bring you now for Lacrosse on Big 10 Network women's play. Dean Linke, Taylor Thornton in Evanston.